We stand here just 2 days after President Trump gave unconditional pardons to violent criminals who attacked our nation's capital on January 6th. And these are the people who want you to believe, who want us to believe that they're trying to, quote unquote, keep criminals off the streets. When they are opening the floodgates. That is what is inside this bill, a fundamental suspension of a core American value. And that is why I rise to oppose it. If you're a dreamer, all someone has to do is point a finger and you will be rounded up. It is atrocious that people are lining their pockets with private prison profits in the name of a horrific tragedy and the victim of a crime. It is shameful. It is absolutely shameful.
I support the Laken Riley Act, and I support the Laken Riley Act because Laken Riley should be alive today. And she would be alive today if it hadn't been for the Democrats and the Biden administration that ripped our border open and allowed this illegal alien monster to come into our country.
Y'all act like if somebody's undocumented, they can't be deported. They can. As a former immigration attorney, I know that for a fact. You're making this up so you can literally allow people to be profiled and discriminated against. Blame them for the cost of eggs? Is that what we're doing here? We're blaming them because you guys can't get corporate greed on a side that is a disease that is killing our economy? People can't afford housing? You think it's because of our immigrant neighbors? No. If you cared truly about fixing our immigration system, you'd go fix it so that U.S. citizens married to undocumented spouses can actually adjust their status, where we have mixed statuses because for 30 years we've ignored and vilified immigrants. Enough is enough.
Mr. Speaker, S5 bears the name of Laken Riley, murdered by one of the 8 million illegal aliens that Joe Biden and his Democratic supporters deliberately allowed into our country over these last 4 years. What happened to Laken Riley cannot happen again should another Joe Biden disgrace the presidency. The ayes have it. The bill is passed. Mr. Speaker, S5 bears the name of Laken Riley, murdered by one of the 8 million illegal aliens that Joe Biden and his Democratic supporters deliberately allowed into our country over these last 4 years. In Laken's case, the murderer was paroled into this country through a shocking abuse of that power. He was repeatedly arrested for theft and other crimes in sanctuary jurisdictions, and each time released back onto our streets. Just months before he murdered Laken, he was arrested for theft. But ICE couldn't take him into custody because of the Biden-Harris administration's policies that shielded such monsters from arrest and deportation. This measure, first introduced by Representative Mike Collins, would require ICE detention for illegal aliens who were charged with, arrested for, or convicted of any burglary, theft, larceny, or shoplifting offense. Now, the Democrats have argued that, well, mere accusation of committing a crime should not be grounds for detention, and besides, shoplifting's no big deal. Well, they ignore the fact that every illegal alien is currently required to be detained by current law throughout the pendency of their asylum claims. The Democrats have thumbed their noses at this law for the past 4 years. Their excuse is that they are prioritizing detaining more dangerous offenders. Well, this bill does exactly that, yet they still oppose it. During his first term, President Trump proved that the president, on his own authority, can secure our borders. President Biden proved that a president who's determined to make a mockery of our immigration laws can willfully open our borders to the most violent criminals, terrorists, gangs, and cartels on this planet, and then use the Democrat sanctuary laws to protect them. This national nightmare ended at noon on Monday. But what of future presidents? This bill assures that what happened to Laken Riley cannot happen again should another Joe Biden disgrace the presidency. Now, our Senate colleagues have added to the Laken Riley Act parts of Sarah's Law, introduced by Representative Randy Feenstra and Senator Joni Ernst, to mandate detention for illegal aliens who commit any offense that involves death or serious bodily injury. Sarah's Law was named after Sarah Root. On January 31, 2016, as Sarah drove home after celebrating her college graduation, an illegal alien who was street racing while drunk slammed into her SUV, snapping Sarah's spine and fracturing her skull. Sarah died 4 days later on February 4th. Within hours of her death, a judge set the illegal alien's bond at $50,000 because no detainer was filed, despite a desperate request by local police to do so. The administration defended this dereliction of duty because, quote, the illegal alien had not been convicted of a criminal charge and therefore was not an enforcement priority. S5 closes this loophole by requiring detention for illegal aliens, like Sarah Root's killer, excuse me, who are arrested for, charged with, admit to, or are convicted of any crime that resulted in someone's death or serious bodily injury. In addition, this bill includes elements of Representative Jeff Van Drew's Detain and Deport Illegal Aliens Who Assault Cops Act, which passed the House last year and applies the same mandate for those who assault law enforcement officials. Now, this bill would also allow states to bring a civil action against derelict federal officers who refuse to enforce immigration law. This was first introduced by Representatives Dan Bishop and Chip Roy in the Sue for Immigration Enforcement Act. That bill also passed the House twice as part of the Laken Riley Act. That bill was also killed by Senate Democrats last year. Well, whether it's sober reflection or perhaps the sobering results of the November election, a handful of Democrats in both the House and the Senate have now come over to support this law, and we welcome them. We wish them well in convincing the majority of their party that they need to change course, if not for the good of our country, then at least for the good of themselves. We'll take their support any way we can get it. I have every confidence that President Trump will end this scourge upon our nation during the next 4 years. This law, and the others that will follow it, will assure that no future president will be able to unleash upon our country what Joe Biden and his Democratic supporters did. I urge my colleagues to support it, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Mr. Speaker, I want the American people to know, with eyes wide open, what is inside this bill. Because we stand here just 2 days after President Trump gave unconditional pardons to violent criminals who attacked our nation's capital on January 6th. And these are the people who want you to believe, who want us to believe that they're trying to, quote unquote, keep criminals off the streets. They are opening the floodgates. I want the American people to know what is in this bill. Because in the guise and in the wake of tragedy, we are seeing a fundamental erosion of our civil rights. In this bill, if a person is so much as accused of a crime, if someone wants to point a finger and accuse someone of shoplifting, they will be rounded up and put into a private detention camp and sent out for deportation without a day in court, without a moment to assert their right and without a moment to assert the privilege of innocent until proven guilty. Without being found guilty of a crime, they will be rounded up. That is what is inside this bill, a fundamental suspension of a core American value. And that is why I rise to oppose it. If you're a dreamer, all someone has to do is point a finger and you will be rounded up. And we have seen moments like these happen before. In the Patriot Act, in the wake of the travesty of 9/11, a fundamental suspension of American civil liberties. That is what we are seeing here today. Mr. Speaker, you may wonder why so many of our friends across the aisle who care so deeply about the rule of law happen to be so desperate to pass this bill, after they are unleashing people who attacked police officers here on this Capitol into roaming our streets, who are publicly saying now they want to get a gun. Suddenly, these folks care about public safety? I don't think so. Look no further than the price tag of this bill, $83 billion. They know that it can't be paid for. They know that the capacity is not there. And you know what will be there? Private prison companies are going to get flooded with money, who give this money, no doubt. I want folks at home to look. Look at what members of Congress are invested in private prison companies who receive this kind of money, and look at the votes on this bill. It is atrocious that people are lining their pockets with private prison profits in the name of a horrific tragedy and the victim of a crime. It is shameful. It is absolutely shameful. And Mr. Speaker, I'll conclude with this. In a few months, there are members of Congress who voted for this bill who are going to pretend they didn't know about all the bad things that are going to happen because of it. So when a private prison camp opens in your town, when a dreamer...
Time has expired.
I yield the gentlelady an additional 30 seconds.
So when a private prison camp opens in your town, and they say, we didn't know this was going to happen, know that they did, and they voted for it. When a dreamer is disappeared from your classroom, when the President of the United States destroys what is left of the Constitution as he's announced in this attack on birthright citizenship, they will all say, we didn't know this was coming. And I want the American people to know that they did. This vote represents it. And with that, I yield back. Thank you very much.
Well, I certainly hope we do open as many prisons as possible to round up as many illegal aliens that have invaded our country and those that are breaking our laws, killing our citizens, women and children, and causing complete havoc across our great land. I support the Laken Riley Act, and I support the Laken Riley Act because Laken Riley should be alive today. And she would be alive today if it hadn't been for the Democrats and the Biden administration that ripped our border open and allowed this illegal alien monster to come into our country. And then in the state of New York, when this monster was arrested for committing crimes, the Democrat state of New York let him go. And that's how he came down to Georgia and murdered our Laken Riley. This is a bill that cannot get passed enough, and I'm so thankful that the American people overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump so that we can sign this bill into law, and it can't happen fast enough. Thank God. But listening to my colleagues, the Democrats on the other side of the aisle, complain and whine and defend illegal aliens that break the law the minute they cross our border is pathetic. The American people are so sick and tired of it. They cannot believe what our country has gone through. And it is enough. It is absolutely enough. But they will go on and on to defend anyone that is not American because of their America Last policies. You talk about tax dollars used. Our tax dollars should be used defending Americans. And you want to talk about spending a lot of money? Spending a lot of money should happen for American causes, American purposes, and American security. Laken Riley is a young woman who should be living her American dream, and she had the right to do it. But people that come across our border illegally are not Americans, and they do not have rights here. And that is exactly why anytime they break a law, anytime they cross into our country, they should be rounded up and shipped out as fast as possible. And if we need to build more prisons, then we'll do it.
And one of the things that I have been seeing over and over again on social media already, Mr. Chair, is literally militarization of Border Patrol, officials everywhere, just people scared and petrified because that's what's exactly happening, because this promotes racial profiling. The bill blatantly violates due process. I mean, these are literally being allegations and charges, not actual convictions. Y'all act like if somebody's undocumented, they can't be deported. They can. As a former immigration attorney, I know that for a fact. You're making this up so you can literally allow people to be profiled and discriminated against. Blame them for the cost of eggs? Is that what we're doing here? We're blaming them because you guys can't get corporate greed on a side that is a disease that is killing our economy? People can't afford housing? You think it's because of our immigrant neighbors? No. If you cared truly about fixing our immigration system, you'd go fix it so that U.S. citizens married to undocumented spouses can actually adjust their status, where we have mixed statuses because for 30 years we've ignored and vilified immigrants. Enough is enough. It will separate families. It would lead again to continued discrimination. It's shameful that my colleagues are giving into racist fear-mongering at the first opportunity to pass legislation to scapegoat our immigrant neighbors and fuel hate in our communities. I know what's going to happen. It won't just be undocumented. It'll be people like my mother who will get stopped and profiled. She have to carry her U.S. passport around? Are we asking people now to have documentation? That's what you want to turn our neighborhoods into, is militarization?
I yield the gentlelady an additional 30 seconds.
Gentlelady is recognized.
I just ask all of you to truly understand what this will do to our communities. I urge our colleagues to please vote no on this divisive bill. And it's so important to understand what you're going to turn our communities and our neighborhoods into. We can't allow that to continue to happen.
The question is on the third reading of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Third reading. The question is on pass.
An act to require the Secretary of Homeland Security to take into custody aliens who have been charged in the United States with theft and for other purposes.
The question is on passage of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The bill is passed.